Ladies and boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, your boy is back. Webcam is back. No, it's not the usual setup and stuff. Things are getting renovated, things are getting done, but we will be back in the office sooner than later, probably max within the 48 hours. Things should be most likely done today, if not early tomorrow, but then still got to move some stuff. So big shout out to Uber Eats for sponsoring this video. First 50 people get $20 off their first 2 meals, which means you can literally eat for free. Just use the code on your screen or the link in the description below. I am super excited, but webcams will be back starting today. Listen, right? So I did a Jasmy video the other day, and some people are saying, hey man, you just said things way too fast. Can you just, I don't know what the hell just happened. And I said, you know what? All right, fair. So this video in a way is going to be like a redo, but not fully, right? Not fully. I'm going to explain in thorough why I believe we will get to the prices where we are going to go. First, let's just go back in time a little bit. We can see that Jasmy kind of ranged between, let's just say 0.003 to 0.007 for pretty much a whole year before it had a big breakout in February, right? We can see in February, it was all the way down here. It opened here and it closed at boom, right? A very nice profit. And we can see a couple of months later, it hit upwards of 800%. So you would have made 9 times your money if you did buy at the bottom of the blue box. And then, right, we kind of went down, we sold off. We had, the January, sorry, not January, we had like the summer that was slow in 2024, right? Bitcoin was consolidating, going sideways for many months before we had a breakout in November. And we can actually see that Jasmy pumped, and it pumped really well. But the monthly candle close was terrible, right? It was a huge rejection, indicating that, hey, reversals are going to be coming, right? We can see how big the actual wick is, right? And if you guys don't know, the wick is pretty much, price was here at one point. Price went all the way to, let's just say 6 cents, right? Slightly below 6 cents. But by the end of the month, within the same month, it was down to 3 cents, a little bit more than 3 cents. So, very bearish, right? Very bearish, not optimal at all. But it did take out this liquidity over here. So we can see it took out this liquidity, filled up a little bit of this imbalance, but then we sold off. After we sold off, we took out all of this structure down here at pretty much 1.5 cents. Okay, so why is this important? Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys don't know, there's a lot of market manipulation, right? When certain zones just kind of line up in a horizontal line, when it's very common for the markets to take that out, to wipe people out and then reverse, right? So we can see, boom, we got wiped out, sold off, and then April, we had a nice recovery month. We closed pretty decent, and now May, we are doing all right as well. I do expect Jasmy to overall do really well once Jasmy starts, finding some kind of ground and starts breaking above 2 cents. Now, the reason why I say this is because if we go back to the monthly, we can see there's a lot of imbalance all the way up to 3 cents. So what does that mean? Well, right, that means that there's not much real support and resistance. When we go down here, this is real support and resistance over here that got broken through, right? Took it out, boom, manipulated, goes back up. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months worth of data holding that floor. Okay, and here, boom, we just slammed down. There is no data really creating some type of support and resistance. So the way the markets work is that it mirrors, right? Usually the markets mirror. If something slams down very fast on one way, then usually when it starts recovering near that price where it slammed down a lot, it's going to pump up a lot very quickly. So I do believe, once we get over this pullback phase of whatever's happening with Bitcoin, right? We can see that Bitcoin is roughly at, $103,500. With Bitcoin overall, I do think it is going to be more in a type of range before it looks to break out. I don't expect full-on pullbacks, down to like 91K, 92K. The maximum, if I was incorrect, I would expect a pullback down to like 97, 98K, because that is the next fundamental area. And this is already a super fundamental retest. This green box over here, if Bitcoin were to pull back, would be a very, very big fundamental retest. But we can see, right, when Bitcoin found momentum, we went down and then went up. We can see we consolidated for roughly a week, maybe a little bit more, before we broke out. So we never even had, massive pullbacks, decent fundamental pullbacks there. We could just see there was just so much pressure that all we had to do was just go sideways for a little bit and continue bursting up, right? We can see we were up and down for a little bit, boom, burst up, then again, going diagonally, boom, eventually bursting up, which is why I kind of drew these trend lines. So yeah, if we were to have the most fundamental pullback, it really shouldn't be going below like 97K. But for me, it is most likely going to go in a diagonal type manner before it breaks up. Now, why am I saying this? Well, I'm saying this is because, right, if I am right, which is a high probability, Bitcoin should only really retrace, 2.5 to 3% at most, which means a coin like Jasmy, right, if we pull it up very, very quickly, a coin like Jasmy shouldn't retrace too much. Portfolio reviews, economic and global updates and news, frequent up-to-date technical analysis, and a very supportive community. Sell and buy calls and trading education is provided. If that sounds good to you, now is the time to act. Once the markets start moving, there is no I should have, coulda, woulda. Now is the time. If you want to take things to another level, we have the blueprint that covers everything from A to Z in crypto that you need. No fluff, no bullshit, just the most important news, fundamentals, and technicals to have you succeed in these markets. But it is also a great buying opportunity. So where would I buy Jasmy? First, I can see a nice support and resistance here. Why? Because we have a relevant top here and we have a relevant bottom. So if we were to retest this green box, it would be roughly, let's just say, even downwards of 8%, right? We might wick a little bit, maybe go down 10%, which means, buying Jasmy for 1.8 cents is not bad. It's really, really not bad. Whatever happens, whether it's here or slightly lower, I expect Jasmy, once it recovers, once it gets above 2 cents and starts closing above 2 cents, I kind of expect the rally to go really, really fast to 3 cents, okay? Because that is where our next demand zone is, okay? This is our next demand zone. We can see there's not a lot of structure here. There's a little bit up and down here, but overall, it should be smooth sailing to over 3 cents, okay? So this is why I think, this is going to be some of your final opportunities to be buying this coin. Because the structure suggests that there will be big, nice pumps, over the next few short weeks, right? Just giving a general timeline. In terms of where Jasmy can go, well, let's just remove everything, right? First off, I feel like this zone is going to be absolutely smashed. No questions doubt. All right. So upwards of 6 cents. So even making 3x, sure, not the most, but should be done very, very easily. Now, if we go and look at the monthly, what do I see? Well, I see an institutional manipulation candle. So if Jasmy were to do kind of whatever this cycle, I do think Jasmy can very, very well go upwards of, like 6x, maybe potentially even 7x, okay? And that is because there's a monthly institutional candle right over here. Now, I do believe this coin will go higher. It is sitting roughly at 1 billion market cap. I do believe this coin can go upwards of 10 to 15 billion market cap, which would mean, this coin going 20 to 30 cents. Now that sounds crazy, but it's not that crazy. It's because we still have liquidity to take out over here. Liquidity is pretty much when there's money, when there's investors investing in certain spots and the markets want to take you out. It sounds crazy, but it's true. It is true. If you watch previous videos, if you have the course, you know what I'm talking about, right? We've seen it and back tested and proved it a million times. So for me, I would be aiming for a 33 cent Jasmy on the more conservative, realistic type scenario. However, if there's going to be a moon boy cycle where we do hit 16 trillion, this coin can definitely go up to 30 billion at one point. A coin that's kind of similar is something like Filecoin, okay? Something like Filecoin. And if we go to Filecoin, we can see, even though there's the data some missing, doesn't matter, the tops were $230. Now, because of market cap, it does not work the same with this coin compared to something like Jasmy. But if we go to something like File's history, Filecoin, we go to market cap, we go to all, we could actually see this coin did hit 12.15 billion. It was a little bit higher because this the way the calculations work are a little bit off. They're always a little bit short, but it was like 13 billion. Okay, so this was last cycle with a lot less money, right? This cycle we are expected to have at least 2 to 4 times the amount of money. And I know sometimes people say, hey, aren't there more cryptos? Guys, the cryptos that get registered and actually are kind of like the official cryptos, there's only like an additional 300. But the ratios to amount of real cryptos added compared to how much money we're going to get, we are getting the better end of the stick, right? We have a fantastic ratio. So if something like Filecoin can casually just kind of get pumped up to 12 billion, why can't something like Jasmy do something similar when there's going to be, 3 to 4 times the amount of money? It doesn't make sense, right? Especially that it's something very similar to like Filecoin. Okay, you got to remember, pumps and dumps happen, right? Remember, pumps and dumps happen. I'm not saying the price will be sustained, but look at this, right? People thought it's crazy. Boom, boom, boom. File was at 23 bucks. All of a sudden, like 2, 3 months later, it was at 234. Huge market cap spike. And then look, boom, right? Within 2 months, right? It kind of went sideways. And then the next month, it just sold off. Manipulation. So if Jasmine does something similar, right? It would not surprise me. It would not surprise me, especially like I said, the 33 cent mark, especially some of these other zones. It would not surprise me if we just see some type of classic manipulation, right? That is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope, it was a bit explained slower, a little bit more clear. Guys, love you so, so much, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.